Hello, welcome to another episode of CEO Conversations. It's Brandy here. I am so excited. Maybe that's not the right word, I should say. Where I am excited because we're going to change up things when it comes to this conversation. And so I'm going to start with the healthcare landscape is shifting. Welcome to CEO Conversations, the private practice podcast. I'm your host, Brandy Mabra. It's time to show up as a confident leader to create a practice and life you love. I got my notes here. I'm all prepared. And I just recently posted about this on Instagram too. But yes, healthcare is shifting. And it takes me back to a time where 2008, 2009 with the recession and people were trying to figure out what are we going to do? How are we going to pay? What are patients going to do? People were losing jobs. There were layoffs. And so very similar to how we are feeling in the current state of times, except for there is a shift when it comes to the one big beautiful bill and also AI. So during the recession days, I remember we went out of network with Blue Cross Blue Shield. And that was a huge contract for us. And what we ended up having to do from that, we had to be innovative. We had to look at our practice model. We had to look at the resources that we had. And so at that point in time, we were a multi-site practice. So we were able to shift people to South Carolina because I'm in North Carolina. We were able to shift people to South Carolina where we actually were still in network in order to make sure that we stayed profitable, in order to make sure that we were able to pay our bills, and in order to make sure that we were able to make payroll. The other part of this is that we start looking for different opportunities for how we could serve our patients, how we could be in a place of in control for when it comes to our payment models, right? And so this time is requiring something very similar. With the One Big Beautiful Bill, I'm sure if you're listening to this or watching this, you know by now, it is something that has been passed. It was passed on July 4th, and there's 12 million people who are now going to be without insurance. Everyone is focused on, I feel, Medicaid, and not necessarily paying attention to what it's going to do holistically for the economy, for people who are on other payers, for people who might be paying cash, for people who are, paying high deductible plans, what the payers are now going to go through. And so there's a bigger and a deeper conversation that we need to have that I wanted to go through today. The second shift, because there's two big shifts, so one big beautiful bill. The second shift is with AI. And so that takes me back, when I thought about, I have been in healthcare a really long time. It made me feel old. I'm like, well, no wonder I have gray hair. No wonder that I'm sitting up here how do I get rid of this wrinkle? Because I have been in healthcare even back in the days of paper charts. And depending on your age and depending on how long you've been in healthcare, for the newer ones, you're probably like, paper charts, what are you talking about? We've always been electronic. No, we have not. There are the times in the dinosaur times of paper charts where you could do weightlifting with some of these charts, right? The thick, and people know, the thick mamma jamma charts that were just progress note after progress note and, tests. And I remember the days of me chasing down providers because we needed a chart for an appointment and it was in their trunk. Just imagine. So the electronic world has not always been a thing. And so when I think about AI, that's what I think about, so there are two big shifts. So just from the reimbursement aspect and then also technology. But the nice thing is that we have been there and we have done that, and healthcare shifts that usually has bigger shifts. So even going back to the third shift that we could think about or we could relate back to would be the pandemic. All of us know, very recently, regardless of how long you've been in healthcare, if you were in healthcare during the pandemic, then that tested everybody for how well we could take care of patients, for the workflows that we had to be developed, for how we were going to pay bills. All of that mattered, and we made it through. We're now on the other side 5 years later, right? So things will be okay. So this is not a doom and gloom episode. This is, again, going back to how can we be informed and not consumed. So let's talk first about the One Big Beautiful Bill, because I want us to think about what's going to happen when 12 million people lose their insurance and what's going to be the impact for that, like for everybody. So just because you're thinking, well, I don't take Medicaid and I don't take Medicare, so the government insurances, I'm not on those panels. It does not matter, because your payers, which are United Healthcare, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Aetna, they all have those types of products. So they have Medicaid products and they have Medicare products. And so when you start to decrease that revenue, because if that coverage goes away, then some of the people that are on those products, that revenue inside of United Healthcare, inside of Blue Cross Blue Shield, is also going to go away. So what does that mean? What's going to happen? That means buckle up, Buttercup, because your prior authorizations are going to become more like of a thing, which is going to bottleneck your workflows. Your high deductible plans are now going to get higher because they're not going to want to have to pay. Your premiums are also going to increase. So everybody is going to be impacted. When premiums go up, that means that companies have to pay more. The people that are working inside those companies are now going to have more revenue go towards benefits and compensation packages, which means that people in other industries could potentially be laid off. So what's that going to do for your patient? What's that going to do for your consumer? What's that going to do for your client? So if you are cash pay, because I can already see, well, I'm cash pay, I don't have to be impacted by this. It doesn't matter. You have to understand what your buyer is going through, and you have to make sure that you're putting yourselves in their shoes, right? So if their husband or if their wife or if their partner loses their job and that income is no longer there, how are they going to pay for services? How are you going to support them? So this is a conversation that needs to go deeper than just the fact that Medicaid and the folks who are on it might lose coverage, right? This is a conversation where we have to pay attention to how is it going to impact everybody and how is that going to end up inside of my practice. So the other piece of this is hospital systems. So hospital systems are the ones who have way more resources than the average everyday private practice, and they're scared. So if they're scared, then that's telling you something. But the flip side of this will be the job market is a job seekers market. So for anybody who is looking for a job, they have options, which makes it more challenging. So I know for our clients, sometimes by the time they get to an offer, the person's already taken another job. So it is about to flip, and it's about to become a employer's market, which means that the person who is the owner who's looking for talent will have the availability of talent. So when the hospital systems start laying off, or even the payers, because that can happen too, where they start laying off, now you have physicians, you have therapists, you have psychologists, you have good admin, you have billers and marketers and people who understand the healthcare industry in all different types of ways who are now looking for a place to land. So part of what you have to do is be prepared for that. So making sure that you're setting your practices up for success when it comes to your business culture, making sure that you're having the clarity for the type of help that you need inside of your practice, the positions inside of your practice, so that way you can attract really great talent. If not, then you're going to get maybe a high performer and they could potentially leave. You won't be able to hold on to them, right? Because your practice is a mess and it's chaotic. So there's a lot of different dynamics that are going to take shape over the next couple of years. My prediction, because really when we think about the one big beautiful bill, it's 10 years. That's a long time. However, with current administration, we still have a couple more years left. So be prepared that definitely over the next couple of years, you're going to start to see things shift. People are already talking about how things are shifting. I know even for the clients that we're working with, we start talking to like what was going to happen with Medicaid and Medicare and the government and payer reimbursement at the beginning of the year. So we've already started to implement strategies to make sure that our clients are good and to make sure that they're set up for success. Even inside a private practice CEO, I've added a whole new call called the CEO expansion call. And inside of that call, we're having more complex conversations when it comes to practice models, looking at other industries. Like, how can we make sure that everybody is set up for success as we navigate the storms ahead, right? So your job, if you're listening to this, is to think about your practice and to get out of the norm. right? So of course, there's certain things that scope is going to require. However, you getting rid of the box, thinking outside the box, thinking about things that you can do in order to serve your person in a deeper way is definitely going to be beneficial for you. The person who's going to make it through this storm will be the innovative CEO. If you are not an innovative person, or if you're just following trends, or you're just doing, well, so-and-so just did this, you're going to lose out. The other piece that our clients are doing, which I'm loving, is the multidisciplinary aspect. So how can they help their person in a deeper way to make sure that the quality's on point, that the reimbursement makes sense? So people are getting rid of just the one way to help somebody and becoming more of a multi-specialty type of practice, which I think is really powerful. So as we continue to have this conversation, it's important for you to not just be tied to one thing, right? Before I say this, and I'm even trying to think how the best way to say it, I'm just going to say it. Like, stop being in silos. Healthcare, when it comes to healthcare is so cliquey, or it can be cliquey. And it's cliquey by the clinical side versus the admin side, and it's cliquey by the specialty, and it's cliquey by the credential. And we have to throw all of that out the window because we are stronger together. And so even going back to the multidisciplinary conversation, you have to think outside the box when it comes to how you're taking care of the person. So you might be like, oh, I never thought about bringing on this certain modality, and it's going to be the best move. So there is a client that I work with. She's a therapist, and she's actually brought in a functional medicine provider into her practice. Love it. We have clients who are bringing in specialties, like a chiropractor that I'm working with, who just hired a nurse practitioner. Love it. Absolutely love it. And it's because you're thinking in a way, how can I make sure that the patient is set up for success in order for us to all win? So that's the type of thinking that's going to be a game changer inside of healthcare, but also inside of your practice. When we think about AI, so again, going back from moving to paper charts, weightlifting and the big little, mamma jammas of paper charts, and moving into the electronic world, when we think about AI and all the possibilities, one of the definite ways, if you are familiar with AI, is with ChatGPT. That's usually the first thing that people go to. Or the second part is like, oh, well, there's AI that's part of my EHR system. Well, at this point in time, we're actually going to, inside of Private Practice CEO, we're spending all of August talking about operations. We're going to be diving into AI to make sure that people are set up for success, going deeper than just prompts, because it matters. And so when we think about utilizing the technology piece and how many people you might need inside of your practice, that is going to change. So if you have 3 admins that are inside of your practice, you could probably get away maybe with 1 if you're utilizing the technology appropriately. So you can have a practice that makes sense, a practice that is efficient, a practice that is effective, and people are actually productive. It also brings me back to a time, again, I've seen a lot. I have just seen so much. It brings me back to a time where, like, the self-check-in kiosk, like one of the first self-check-in kiosks. So this was before they were at the airport. This was before they were at grocery stores. This was before they were at, like, the Minute Clinic. Here I am sitting here in this little practice in North Carolina trying to get people to check themselves in. I mean, it was wild. It was funny. We had a greeter, but the efficiency, once we got it straight, and I loved the CEO that I was able to work with at that time, because he was the master of innovation. So this was when high deductible plans first became a thing. Man, I'm really aging myself. Like, a high deductible plan, became a thing, and what we needed to do to make sure that reimbursement, because the reimbursement wasn't going to come up front, it was going to come like way after, and we didn't know how many people, how much they owed, or how many people are on high deductible plans, like all the stuff that we navigate more easily now. We were on, like, boots on the ground, right? Trying to make sure, like, our fee schedules were up to date. We knew our top 5 payers. A lot of the things I teach, is from this CEO because he was so innovative. So we had self-check-in kiosk, and that is now a thing. And so people try to think like, oh, it's so, like, revolutionary. No, they've been around for a long time. But when we did that, efficiency came with it. We got faster. the amount of check-in people that I had, or front desk team, my front desk team honestly got smaller because we had this technology. So we're going through something very similar now. So as you're thinking about your workflows, your processes, and your systems, the first thing isn't always to go to, is there a person? Or the first thing isn't always to go to, does the person have to do it, right? So your team, I know a lot of business owners are training up on AI. Your team members need to be training up on AI too. So I think that this needs to be part of your onboarding. When we think about Chat GPT, do you have the team account versus just the I own it type of account? All those things are going to be important to make sure that you're set up for success. Also, getting very familiar with one type of platform. You don't need all the AI tools. Like, I talk to some people and they have ChatGPT and they have Claude, and then they're trying to learn the AI with their EHR system. And then there's this other random Jasper, and there's 50 million different tools that you can use, and there's 50 million different subscriptions that you can buy. And so you need to get very good at maybe a couple of them. And you definitely need to be very good with the one that's inside of your EHR and your EMR system, because that's like the hub of your whole practice. If you can't get good with that AI, or you don't have like your policy and procedure set up around like your documentation and how your team is using it, start there first, right? And then dive into maybe some of the other tools that you can use in order to make sure that you're set up for success when it comes to your practice. So again, healthcare is shifting. It has shifted before. And part of our job is to make sure that we're set up for success, and that we're not just not paying attention to, well, it's not happening in my practice, so I think I'm good. Or it's not happening with my population, so I think we're okay. No, two big shifts that's going to change. So when we think about healthcare even 5 years from now, when we think about healthcare even 10 years from now, we're going to be talking about, just like how I'm talking about, I remember when we went from paper charts to EHR, or I remember the recession of 2008, or I remember the pandemic. People are going to go back and talk to, I remember when 12 million people lost their insurance. I remember when we started to adapt AI, and now there's this robot who is here, as part of my care. So we have to stop, we have to pay attention, and we have to make sure that we're set up for success. I'm also going to tell you that you need to make sure that you're in the right communities. If you are in an echo chamber of a community, get out or add something else, right? Because you want to diversify who is in your ear. You want to diversify what you're being fed. You want to diversify the ideas that you can have in order for you to be an innovative CEO. So if it's just the same old, change it up, right? Get to know other industries. Make sure that you're part of entrepreneur groups that can feed you. So, and I'll be honest, like, we have clients who are part of Private Practice CEO because of the diversity for the type of specialties that we have, but also they are in other types of programs in order to be able to be around other industries, other types of entrepreneurs outside of healthcare. So you need all of it in order to survive what's getting ready to happen. And so if you are just in the echo chamber, you won't see anything that's possible. So be part of your business chamber, like your local business chamber. Make sure that you're really forming, entrepreneurial bonds with other entrepreneurs outside of healthcare, and look for best practices. So if you walk into the grocery store, start paying attention to how they're doing something. If you walk into the gym, look at how they're doing things. If you are paying attention to how people are conducting business, whether the emails that you're getting or the industries, like, start studying business. Study business, good best practices, leadership, all of it. So that way you can get some other ideas. I'm definitely going to invite you to join Private Practice CEO for our Lunch and Learn, which is happening at the time of this recording, August 25th through August 29th. And so it's 5 days with me where we're going to dive into operations. We're going to talk about money. We're going to make sure that you're set up for success when it comes to your team. And it's definitely going to help you get out of the weeds of your practice. It's going to allow for you to show up as an amazing, innovative CEO, and also get some time back on your calendar so you can actually study and understand industry. And then it's absolutely going to help you make more money. So if that is interesting to you, then you can see the show notes and join me for the Private Practice CEO Lunch and Learn at the end of the month. So I think that's it for today. I hope that this was helpful. I'm pretty sure it was helpful, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye. Thanks for listening today. I hope you enjoyed the episode and it empowers you as the CEO of your practice. If you enjoyed the podcast, please make sure you subscribe, share the message, and leave a review. If you want more information and support in growing and scaling your practice, click the link in the show notes to take advantage of our free resources or apply to work with me directly. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.